Today we will be talking about 5.6 and 5.7. The first theorem we want to discuss is, remember we have our side angle side. Well, instead of side angle side, we are talking about angle side angle congruence theorem, which basically means that if two angles instead of two sides, if two angles and the side included, so the side has to be in between the two angles, are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. Let me give you a little example of what that means. So if I have two triangles here, not the best triangle, try to make a little less wiggly of a triangle. And I say these two angles are congruent along with this angle, and that angle is congruent. And then the side in between them, so this side and this side, so the two angles and the side in between them are congruent, then they are congruent together. So let's go on to the next one. Our next one is our angle side. Angle side, or AAS. So angle side basically says if there's two sides and then the angle following that are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. And with that, we have here, so we do angle, and then an angle, and then the side is not included. It is either here. So that is a good example of an angle side. So as you kind of go around, we have an angle, and then a side. Angle, side are congruent there. And then our last part from that, the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So this theorem is good to use, or for basically says if we somehow prove two triangles are congruent, then the parts that correspond with each other, they also have to be congruent. You can say it's called CP, CTC congruent, but I always like to say corresponding parts theorem. For me, that's an easier way to know. So if I had here, let me draw a picture. For me, it's easier to do this visually. And I proved that these triangles using their sides. So let's say I did a side, and I said, oh, with side, these triangles are congruent. Well, let's call this triangle ABC, XYZ. Well, since those are congruent, I can also say, because of that, the angles have to be congruent. I can say that angle X is congruent to angle Y. Angle B is A is congruent to X, B is congruent to Y, and C is congruent to Z, using that corresponding parts of congruent triangles must be congruent.